Everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Dental Assistant Council meeting. My name is Melinda Casares. I am the I am the chair of the Dental Assistant Council. Today is Friday, April 30th, 2021. The Dental Assistant Council meeting is being held via WebEx. Pursuant to the provisions of Governor Newsom's Executive Order N-25-20, dated March 17th, 2020, neither a public location nor teleconference locations are provided for this meeting. For all those who wish to participate, please log on to WebEx website provided on the posted agenda for this meeting. Instructions to connect to the meeting are provided on the agenda. The preferred audio connection is via telephone conference and not the microphone and speakers on your computer. The phone number and access code will be provided as part of your connection to the meeting. Since this meeting is being conducted via WebEx, I will ask all Dental Assistant Council members and speakers to announce themselves by name before speaking for clarity of the official record. All Dental Assistant Council members are able to unmute themselves to speak during the meeting. Please place yourself back on mute when not speaking to reduce background noise for all participants when making a motion. Please use the raise hand feature located at the bottom right of the WebEx screen so board staff can identify a motion and a second. During a discussion on an agenda item, please use the raise hand feature if you want to speak and I will call on you. Following such online meeting etiquette will ensure the best audio quality for everyone. During each call for comments from Dental Assistant Council members and speakers, we will ensure that all comments can be accommodated, are heard before proceeding with the agenda. We will be taking a 15-minute break in the morning. We do not anticipate this meeting going past noon. In the event that it does, we will be taking a 30-minute lunch break if necessary. This is an official meeting for the Dental Assistant Council. The Council welcomes public comments on any item on the agenda, and it is the Council's intent to ask for public comments prior to the Council taking action on any agenda item. The DCA moderator will explain the process for providing public comment shortly. When called upon, the moderator will unmute the microphone of the individual and they will have 2 minutes to make public comments. The moderator will audibly announce when 30 seconds remain to conclude the public comment. After the 2 minutes have lapsed, the individual will be placed back on mute. Only one public comment per agenda item is allowed per attendee. Depending on the number of people who would like to testify on a particular agenda item, a total time limit may be imposed. We ask all speakers to please stay on topic and not repeat testimony already provided. If you agree with testimony already provided, just state your name and that you are in support of any comments previously provided. I would now like to ask the DCA moderator to please explain how public comments will be taken during the WebEx meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the moderator of the meeting. To facilitate public comment, we will be utilizing the WebEx question and answer feature, also called the Q&A. When the Council reaches a point in the agenda at which public comment is appropriate, the question and answer feature will be turned on, and members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment by inserting the phrase, "I would like to make a comment," in the question box, which is typically in the lower right of your screen. The moderator will then call on the individual and unmute their microphone. The individual will have 2 minutes to make their comments. At the conclusion of 2 minutes, the individual's microphone will be muted and we will move on to the next member of the public who has a comment. Please note that the question and answer feature is being used only as a means for members of the public to represent that they would like to make a verbal comment. This is not a means to ask questions of the moderator or members of the council. Such inquiries submitted using this feature will not be answered. When making your comment, please make sure that the comment is directed at the host in the dropdown. While you are free to express criticism or negative views, for the sake of the members of the public participating on the call, please do not use profane language when making public comments to the council. I will provide a brief reminder of this approach at the start of each public comment item. Finally, when council members or senior staff are not speaking, I would like to remind them to mute their microphone. If I detect background noise during the meeting as a result of unmuted microphones, I will interject with a brief friendly reminder. And I return this back to the chair.
Thank you. This is Chair Casares. I would like to call the meeting to order and ask the board staff to call the roll.
This is Sahura Tao, the Administrative Analyst, and I will now call the roll. Cazares.
Present.
Present. Fowler.
Present.
Present. Jawad.
Present.
Present. Miyazaki.
Present.
Present. Olagi.
Olagi, present.
Present. Pacheco.
Pacheco, present.
Present. Madam Chair, a quorum has been established.
This is Chair Casares. Thank you. Now we will move on to agenda item 2, public comment on items not on the agenda. Are there any public comments on items not on the agenda? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have opened up the question and answer panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type "I would like to make a comment" using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference, and we'll give you a moment to access this feature. Madam Chair, this is the moderator. I see no request for public comment at this time. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's been closed.
This is Chair Casares. Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item 3, discussion and possible action on February 25th, 2021 meeting minutes. Is there any council member discussion? Please use the raise hand feature.
This is Amelia Zulawaga. I just wanted to clarify that there were non-substantive changes to the meeting minutes by staff, and that's why those amended minutes, are being projected on the screen right now.
Good morning. This is Sarah Wallace, Assistant Executive Officer. Staff, do we have the track changes version of the meeting minutes so the council can see the difference between what was in the meeting materials and what the changes staff are recommending? DCA moderator, are we able to project another document?
Hi, this is the moderator, and yes, if the document is sent, we can project it, or if someone just wants to open it on their computer, I can quickly make them the presenter and they can show their screen. Either way.
I do have it open, DCA moderator.
Okay, so let me just go ahead and make you the presenter then. And then just go to share at the bottom of your screen, and you can choose to share your this file or share your desktop.
Okay, DCA moderator, are you able to see the document I'm projecting?
Yes, we can. And if
Okay.
you need to make it larger, on the left, there's a magnifying glass with the plus. You can make it larger if you so desire.
Okay. Council members, are you able to view this document?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just going to go through real quick. They are technical and non-substantive cleanup to the board meeting minutes to bring them into the formatting and style guide consistent with the DCA rules. And so as you'll see in track changes mode, there are some edits. I just want to scroll through naming conventions, itemizing how many members were present, again, names, a note that the chair assumed her new role. I'm just going to scroll through slowly here. And we will be posting this as part of our meeting materials as well. Notes that the council received public comment. And again, these are all technical. At this point, staff is requesting that the council take action to approve the meeting minutes as amended, as presented at this meeting, unless there are additional council member comments. DCA moderator, do I click the stop button to stop sharing the document?
Yes, that is correct.
Before I do that, I just wanted to ask if the council members have any questions about the document I'm sharing. Okay, I will, oh, I'm sorry. I cannot see the screen right now. Is there anyone with shared hand or raised hands, DCA moderator?
This is the co-moderator. Tara Welch has her hand up.
Thank you.
Okay.
This is Tara Welch, Board Counsel. I just wanted to propose a revision on page 1. It's in the introductory language. There is a note at the very top of the page. On the second line, it says dated March 12, 2020. That date should be March 17. That's all. Thank you.
And I'm projecting that edit currently. DCA moderator, are there any other hands raised?
This is a moderator, and I do not see any. Tara, your hand is still up. I don't know if you have an additional comment or you just need to click your hand icon again to lower it.
Yeah, actually, the executive order number at the end of that line, that note line, it says N2520. That should be N2929. Thank you.
All right, this is a moderator, and I'm seeing no other hands up.
Okay, thank you, council members. I'm going to stop projecting this screen at this point so that you may continue your discussion. Thank you.
Hello, this is Chair Casara. Since there are no other comments from the board or the council members, is there a motion and a second? Please use the raise hand feature for a motion or a second. Jerry Fowler and Rosalinda Olage. Second. Thank you. Please turn off the raise hand feature. The motion is passed. Are there any public comments, DCA moderator? Please facilitate the lines for public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will open up the Q&A feature. If any member of the public would like to comment on this agenda item, please type "I would like to make a comment" using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference. This is the moderator. I see no requests for comment at this time. Madam Chair, would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
Thank you. Board staff, please call roll and record votes for the agenda item.
Kate, this is Pahua Tao, and the motion is to approve the meeting minutes as amended, and I will now call the roll. Cazares?
Aye.
Cazares, aye. Fowler?
Fowler, aye.
Fowler, aye. Jawan?
Aye.
Jawan, aye. Miyazaki?
Aye.
Miyazaki, aye. Olagi?
Olagi, aye.
Olagi, aye. Pacheco?
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, aye. Reed Espinoza?
Aye.
Reed Espinoza, aye. And the motion passed.
Thank you. Now we will move on to agenda item 4. Presentation regarding orthodontic assistant permit, occupation analysis, and examination modifications by the Office of Professional Examination Services. I am going to ask Dr. Heidi Linser and Ms. Karen, representatives from the Office of Professional Examination Services, to present this agenda item.
Good morning, and thank you for having us. My name is Karen Okasich, and I am here with Dr. Heidi Linser. We are from the Office of Professional Examination Services, and we'll be presenting this morning on the results of the occupational analysis that was recently conducted for the orthodontic assistant profession. For those of you who may not be familiar with our office, we are a unit within the Department of Consumer Affairs, and we exist to help the licensing boards and bureaus under DCA's umbrellas develop licensing examination programs that are valid, legally defensible, and fair to candidates. In some instances, we work directly with the boards to develop their examinations, and in other instances, we may be working with them to review their national exams or to consider examination options when they're making modifications or looking at alternatives. Next slide. In performing our work, we adhere to requirements that are set forth in regulations, technical standards, and professional guidelines that have been accepted by the courts and within the testing industry. In California, licensing boards are required to adhere to Business and Professions Code Section 139, which mandates that their examination programs undergo periodic review and demonstrate a sufficient level of validity evidence. Part of Section 139 includes conducting an occupational analysis of the profession every 5 years. In addition, we also review examination programs against the standards for education and psychological testing and the principles for the validation and use of personnel selection procedures. These standards and principles specify both professional and psychometric criteria for demonstrating evidence of validity. Next slide. So there are a number of factors that we look at when we're evaluating validity, but there are some basic components. And first, examinations must provide a reliable method for identifying practitioners who are able to perform practice safely and competent and distinguish them from those who are not. A second characteristic is that the licensing exam must focus on entry-level tasks and knowledges that are important for protecting the health, safety, and welfare of the public. And then a third characteristic is that development processes must involve the input of subject matter experts who are practitioners actually working in the field. And in addition, the development processes should occur under the guidance of psychometricians or testing specialists who will evaluate and ensure that technical criteria are met. Next slide, please. So before I get into the specifics of the study, I just want to give you an overview of the examination development process for context. Developing a licensing examination is an ongoing cycle to ensure that the content is always reflective of current practice. So the cycle begins with an occupational analysis, which is a systematic study to identify basically three things. We're looking to identify what are the main areas or content areas involved in performing in practice. Then we're looking at what are the specific tasks that are involved in performing within each of those areas. And we're also looking at what knowledge is required to perform those tasks safely and effectively. So the results of the OA then are used in all subsequent development processes. It's first used to develop an examination outline, which becomes a blueprint for how we develop the examination. That exam outline is taken to item writing, where subject matter experts are trained in how to write items for licensing examinations. And then they develop items to specific tasks and specific knowledges on that examination outline. By doing that, we link each of the items that are written for the examination back to that study of the profession and those critical competencies that are required for practice. Items that are written then go to an item review process. They are first looked at by another group of subject matter experts who make sure that the content is relevant, and they're also looking to ensure that they are adequately measuring those competencies that are intended. So they're going back and looking at that examination outline again to verify that those items are doing what they're supposed to be doing. There is a second component to the item review that we recommend, and it is where we pre-test new items. So these items will go onto an examination form and they are not scored. Candidates don't know which ones they are, and we'll gather statistical data about how they perform. So an item has to meet specific criteria in order to become a usable item. If it does not meet that criteria, it goes back for review. So once an item does meet that criteria and becomes usable, it then can go into a pool of other items that's used for examination construction. And during the examination construction process, we will construct the items using that examination outline according to the weights for each of those content areas that is established during the occupational analysis. And by doing this, we ensure that the examination proportionally represents the different areas of practice. Then once the exam has been constructed, a passing score is determined. And that can be a presentation in and of itself. But for licensing exams, it's recommended that the passing score be set using what's referred to as a criterion reference methodology. So using this method, the criteria of minimum competence is used in conjunction with subject matter expert judgments about characteristics of the examination to set a passing score. And during this process, the examination outline is once again used heavily to make judgments about minimum competence for entry into the profession. Next slide, please. So the occupational analysis is an important and foundational part of examination development. It provides a description of practice that allows us to develop items that measures the competencies required for practice, and it's a required component of building examinations that are legally defensible, valid, and fair. And it also helps to establish evidence of validity by linking examination content with the critical competencies required for practice. In addition, the results of the OA may be used by boards for other purposes, including making legislative changes, evaluating education experience requirements, or establishing assessment-related policies. Next slide. In conducting an occupational analysis, we begin by researching background information about the profession. We look at laws governing scope of practice and education experience requirements, but we're also looking at emerging trends within the profession. As part of the research process, we're also conducting a number of interviews with practitioners who are actually performing the job to find out what exactly is currently involved in effective performance. So based on that background research, we then develop task and knowledge statements that are refined and developed further with additional subject matter experts in multiple workshops. Once the statements have been fully developed, we administer a survey to practitioners throughout California who are asked to rate each task and knowledge statement according to how it applies to their job. Information from that survey is then analyzed and taken to yet another group of subject matter experts who review those results. The task and knowledge statements that are retained following that workshop serve to form a description of practice, and it then becomes the basis for the examination outline. Next slide, please. In 2020 and carrying into 2021, OPS worked with the board to conduct an occupational analysis of the orthodontic assistant permit holder profession. This was the first time that a survey occupational analysis was able to be performed for this profession. When it first became regulated, there were no orthodontic assistants to include in a study. So as a result, the examination outline was based on what is specified in statute with input from orthodontists and dentists. Growth for the profession was initially slow, but in recent years, there's been a fairly substantial growth in the profession. So we were now able to do a survey study and derive a more comprehensive description of what orthodontic assistants are actually doing on the job. At the time of the study was begun, there were approximately 1,300 orthodontic assistants in the state of California, 794 of whom had an email address on file with the board. These practitioners were sent an email invitation containing a link to an online survey. Excuse me. We received responses from 239 of them. However, in some instances, the practitioners either indicated they were not currently practicing or they did not provide enough response data to be considered usable. So in total, 105 responses were included in the final analyses with a response rate of about 13.2%. So this response rate is very typical of what we will get for occupational analysis surveys. And there are a number of factors that we look at when we perform data analyses, and the patterns that we observed led us to feel confident that the response rate received was sufficient to be representative of overall practice. Next slide, please. So when we administer surveys, we collect demographic information from respondents to provide a context for interpreting results and to ensure that the results are representative of practice. So we typically gather information about experience and training, work setting, and geographical location of practice. Next slide, please. The first question we asked on this survey was about years of experience. Because the results provide a description of practice, we want to ensure that we have representation of different levels of experience. However, because a primary purpose is to form the basis of an examination outline that's used to measure competency for entry-level practice, we want to ensure that we have an adequate representation of practitioners licensed 5 years or less. So the results obtained in this survey appear to be representative of the experience level of practitioners throughout the state. Approximately 14% of the respondents had been licensed 6 years or longer, while about 86% had been licensed 5 years or less. So as the profession has been regulated for just over 10 years, and because the past few years have seen an increase in the number of candidates taking the examination, this finding appears consistent with the overall experience distribution of practitioners in California. Next slide, please. The second question we asked had to do with the experience pathway of respondents, whether they possessed an RDA license with qualifying experience or whether they qualified through the work experience as an unlicensed dental assistant. The results indicated that approximately 70% of respondents had an RDA license with experience, while 21% had worked as an unlicensed dental assistant. And this finding was also consistent with what we expected when we reviewed background information from the board about how many practitioners held an RDA license versus how many did not. And the other category tended to include other license types such as RDA-EF or RDH. Next slide, please. In gathering information about experience, we also asked about licenses and other certifications held, and the results were also as expected. The majority of respondents indicated they held an RDA license, an X-ray certification, and coronal polishing certificate. Next slide, please. We then asked the respondents about their work setting. When we asked about the primary work setting, the majority of respondents, about 72%, indicated they worked in a private orthodontic or group orthodontic practice, followed by a general private or general group practice. Other practice settings included public health or dental school clinics, although this was a small percentage. There was about 2% for each of those settings from our respondents. Next slide, please. In gathering information about work setting, we also asked about the dental team environment in which the respondents were working. And most respondents indicated that they were the only orthodontic assistant or that they worked with up to 3 additional OAPs. Next slide. In addition, the majority, about 77%, worked with 3 or fewer RDAs or RDAEFs in their practice setting. Next slide, please. And over half of the respondents indicated that their primary work setting did not use unlicensed dental assistants, while about 34% indicated there were up to 3 unlicensed assistants in their work setting. Next slide. One of the things we want to track with occupational analyses is changes in professions over time. So we worked with subject matter experts to identify some of the services provided in their work settings and technology being used. In the survey, the majority of respondents indicated that their primary work setting provides Invisalign and fabricates removable or fixed appliances. They also indicated that 3D model scanning is frequently being used. Next slide. And then we also asked respondents about the geographical location of where they worked. So when we asked this question, we found that all regions of the state were represented in the survey, and it appears consistent with the distribution of practitioners throughout California. Next slide. So these practitioners, our respondents, were asked to provide ratings on task statements that resulted from those interviews and workshops that we held with practitioners. The respondents were asked to rate each task statement according to how frequently they performed it in their work setting and how important it was for effective performance relative to all the other tasks that they performed. So the rating scale for frequency ranged from 0, indicating that the task was not something they performed, to 5, indicating that the task was performed very frequently. And then on the importance scale, a rating of 1 indicated that the task was not important for performance, while a rating of 5 indicated that the task was critically important. Next slide, please. So respondents were also asked to provide importance ratings for associated knowledge statements, and the scale used for these ratings ranged from 0, indicating that the knowledge was not required for performance of their job, to 5, indicating that it was critically important. Next slide. So data obtained from these respondents were analyzed, and overall criticality values for the task and knowledge statements were calculated and then taken to a workshop with subject matter experts who evaluated the results. During this workshop, subject matter experts reviewed the results to determine, first of all, which task and knowledge statements were critical for practice, and then they also confirmed linkages between tasks and knowledge statements to ensure that every critical task was linked with the critical knowledge and vice versa. So once the task and knowledge statements had been finalized, the subject matter experts finalized the organization of those statements within content areas to form a description of practice. Next slide, please. So the final description of practice was organized into 4 main content areas. The first one was patient information and diagnostic records. The second one was orthodontic procedures. The third area was infection control and health and safety. And the fourth was laws and ethics. So SMEs then considered whether these content areas should be tested on the licensing exam, and they agreed that they should be. The SMEs discussed how to organize those content areas into sections for the examination outline, and they also reviewed the preliminary weights for each of the content areas that were based on ratings from the occupational analysis and made adjustments so that they more accurately reflected the proportional importance of each of those content areas and sections in practice. Next slide. So the resulting examination outline assigned a weighting, I'm hoping you can see that, okay, a weighting of 10% to the content area patient information and records, and it was distributed across 2 sections. The largest weight, 60%, was assigned to the content area orthodontic procedures, and it was distributed across 5 sections. The content area infection control and health and safety was assigned a weight of 18%, distributed across 2 sections, and the final content area laws and regulation was assigned a weight of 12%. Next slide, please. So as part of the occupational analysis process, we perform an overall evaluation of the examination program and will make recommendations to boards about potential changes to their examination program if the data warrant. So because there was now sufficient practitioners to do a thorough study of the orthodontic assistant profession, we were able to define practice in terms of what orthodontic assistants are doing in practice. We had a really good idea of that. So it became clear that there was additional content that should be included on the examination. In particular, especially because given the purpose of licensing is public protection, it was determined that the areas of health and safety and laws and regulations should be included on the examination. And because there is additional content, we recommend that the board increase the number of items on the examination. The examination currently comprises 65 scored items with no pretest items, and we recommend that the board increase the number of items to 100, with 75 being scored and 25 being pretest items. So by including pretest items, it will help us confirm that items used on subsequent forms function as they're intended. So in order to accommodate the increase in number of items, we're also recommending that the board increase the time that candidates are allowed to take the exam from 90 minutes to 120 minutes or 2 hours. Next slide, please. So we also evaluated, as part of this process, how the profession is changing in terms of the number of practitioners entering the profession. When the orthodontic assistant profession first became regulated, there were less than 50 candidates who took the examination in the first year. That number has steadily increased, and in the most recent years, the number of administrations has been between 400 and 600 a year. So due to the number of candidates who are now taking the examination, we recommend increasing the frequency with which the examination form is changed. So if the board adopts the recommendation to increase the number of items, we do recommend sharing the release date of the new form to prepare candidates. And we propose a start date of September of 2021. However, for security purposes, publication dates for subsequent forms will not be released. Next slide. So that concludes our presentation. Are there any questions?
Are there any comments from the board members? Please raise your hand. Kara, did you have a comment or question?
Yes, I did. Let me unraise my hand. Thank you for that presentation. That was very thorough, and the documents that were provided were really extensive and thorough too as well. I had a question about the survey, and I was wondering, since this is sometimes since this is used to also determine if OAPs are doing duties outside the scope of practice, but maybe it should be something that could be changed within the regulations about their scope of practice. Did you find any dental OAPs doing a particular duty outside their scope of practice when you gave the survey, or had the SME meetings?
We did not find that anybody was working out of the scope of practice at this point in time.
Okay, and then for the added content for the health and safety and the laws and regulations, what drove that to include more added content to the exam?
Well, health and safety is the that component is very, very important in terms of general public protection, particularly within the dental industry. It is included on the RDA examination. However, because there's a significant number of candidates who take this examination who do not take the RDA exam, it was determined that it was important to assess that. But in addition, there are functions that are being performed by orthodontic assistants that are different than RDAs. And so how they implement those health and safety regulations would be different than how it is implemented by RDAs.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for that explanation. And then I had one last question. Were there any OAPs that did qualify by being a RDA or having the 12 months of experience as a unlicensed DA? Was that a finding in the survey?
Yes, that was one of our demographics, and it's in the report. So we had, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get back to where that slide was. So the pathway, there was on the survey, there were about 70% of the respondents came through the RDA pathway, and 21% had come through the unlicensed dental assistant pathway.
And then there were some that didn't qualify through either route, right? Or
well, there was a portion that had identified that they were an RDA EF or an RDH. So whether that, I would assume that that would also mean that they came through the RDA pathway. We didn't gather additional information as to how they qualified. That was just what they indicated on the survey.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your answers.
Jerry, go ahead. I believe you had a comment or question.
Yes, thank you. I had a question regarding the process in the examination when putting together the questions. So I understand how we get to what subject matter is going to be discussed, but when it comes time for putting together the questions for the exam, is that done by getting a group of subject matter experts like dentists, orthodontists together to actually compose the questions?
In terms of examination construction, there's different ways that we can go about it. There are statistical models that may be used, but it always does involve a process of review with subject matter experts. So even at the passing score workshop, subject matter experts are looking at those items to ensure that even though they went through the item writing process where they were developed by subject matter experts, they went through a review process where they were looked at another group of subject matter experts. There's still that third component where they are again looked at by subject matter experts, and in conjunction with that examination outline, to make sure that each of those questions are representative of the competencies required for orthodontic assistant profession and practice.
All right, thank you very much.
Are there any other comments from the board or the council? Are there any public comments? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've opened up the Q&A feature. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type "I would like to make a comment" using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference. And we do have a Claudia Pohl who would like to make a comment. Claudia, I'll let you know when you've been unmuted. Please remember you have 2 minutes. I'll give you a 30-second warning. And Claudia, you have been unmuted.
Thank you so much, Claudia Pohl. Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Claudia Pohl with the CDAA. Thank you very much. Great presentation, very thorough, lots of information here. I do have a question about the adjusting the administration cycle. If you could explain the relationship between the increase in candidates with the increased frequency of the form change, what drives that? Can you explain that? I'm not understanding that. Thank you.
So in terms of changing the examination form, we will take into account several different psychometric factors, but we're really concerned. Yeah, we are very concerned with reducing overexposure of items. And so we we work with the board to determine a form change cycle that's appropriate for the number of candidates and how frequently the testing is occurring. So it's something we don't tend to go into a lot of detail about because it does have some implications for validity and for ensuring exam security.
All right, this is the moderator. I see no additional requests for public comment. Madam Chair, would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
Thank you, moderator. Now we will move on to agenda item 5, update regarding registered dental assistant and extended functions, written examination by the Office of Professional Examination Services. I'm going to ask Ms. Amelia Zulaga, Dental Assisting Program Manager, to present the background information on this agenda item. And then Dr. Linser and Ms. Akatig will continue the presentation for this agenda.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chair Cazares. I hope everyone is well. This memo, beginning on page 113 of the meeting materials, provides the background regarding the RDAEF examination. The RDAEF clinical and practical examinations are specified in statute at Business and Professions Code, section 1753.4. Board staff continue to reach out to dental schools in both Northern and Southern California to find a host school for this exam. Simultaneously, on February 18, 2021, Senate Bill 607 was introduced by Senator Roth, and if enacted, would delete the RDAEF clinical or practical exam requirement and make related technical amendments. On April 19, 2021, there was a hearing with the Senate Business, Professions, and Economic Development Committee, where the bill was passed and referred to the Senate Appropriations Committee. The Senate Appropriations Committee hearing is currently scheduled for May 3, 2021. In anticipation of Senate Bill 607 moving forward, on March 26 to 27, 2021, the Office of Professional Examination Services held an RDAEF item writing workshop to begin creating an RDAEF written examination that would replace the current written and practical exams. I'm going to ask Dr. Heidi Linser and Ms. Karen Okasich, representatives from Office of Professional Examination Services, to continue with this agenda item by presenting an update on this process.
So good morning. This is Karen Okasich again. And I'm going to now talk about the recommendations that we have for the RDAEF clinical and practical examinations. So I do want to say that historically, we work with many boards who have professions that have a practical component to their licensing examination process that are intended to measure oral or psychomotor skills. However, these types of examinations do tend to be prone to validity challenges and can include issues with patient availability, standardization, and scoring. And the COVID pandemic has brought many of these issues to the forefront. OPES supports boards in evaluating whether practical examinations are necessary as part of the clinical licensing process or whether these skills are better assessed through other modalities such as clinical training. This is especially true for professions where pass rates on practical exams are high, indicating that candidates have received sufficient training in those psychomotor skills, and where complaints involving standard of practice violations are low. OPS strongly advocates that boards consider whether an alternative format is available for measuring cognitive skills and clinical judgments. And in March of this year, OPES met with a group of subject matter experts to discuss the RDA-EF clinical and practical portions of the licensing examination components to determine whether they were necessary components or whether there were important competencies that could be measured using different formats. So during this workshop, OPES presented subject matter experts with structured questions about the essential competencies that were assessed by the practical and clinical examinations, with specific emphasis on the health and safety implications of each of those exam components. So out of the discussions that occurred, subject matter experts indicated that the psychomotor skills are important for practice, but they did conclude that the candidates do appear to receive an adequate training in those areas when they gain their clinical experience. So second, it was also determined that there were theoretical competencies that underlie performance of those psychomotor skills that could potentially be assessed in a different format. And these competencies related to making clinical judgments and decisions based on patient presentation, contraindications, and restorative materials. In addition, subject matter experts pointed out that health and safety and infection control elements are indirectly part of the practical and clinical examinations, which can also be tested in a different format. Next slide. I apologize. I actually started talking about this one. Next slide. So OPES then discussed with the subject matter experts how critical competencies related to clinical judgments could be measured in written format, including through the use of more clinically oriented questions, use of scenario-based practice questions, and including more questions that address a wider range of clinical situations. So when these options were presented to the subject matter experts, they agreed that these competencies could likely be measured in this manner. Next slide. We then looked at the examination outline for the written exam to determine whether the current written examination was sufficient for measuring these competencies that were measured by the practical and clinical components. And the consensus was that it did not, and that if a written format is to be used, the subject matter experts felt there is additional content that should be included. So we then worked to organize the content areas of the written examination outline to accommodate the additional content needed and develop additional tasks and knowledge statements regarding those competencies. Next slide. Based on the outcome of that workshop, OPES definitely supports the board in moving toward a straight written format for these examinations, but there were a couple of other psychometrically related considerations that went into our evaluation. Our overriding concern is validity, and we want to make sure that the examination complies with professional standards and Business and Professions Code Section 139. So one of the considerations that we had was the timeline for implementation. In order to develop additional content that complies with professional standards, we need to perform this development in conjunction with subject matter experts through item writing and review processes. And in addition, a passing score for the examination should be set with subject matter experts using a criterion reference methodology. And then there are some additional requirements that go into getting it set up with the testing vendor and testing to ensure that it functions and scores properly. So we are impacted that there is a little bit of a timeline consideration in determining when the examination can be implemented. Next slide, please. A second consideration that went into our evaluation is whether an occupational analysis was warranted in this situation. When we look at making changes to examination content or changing examination formats, we typically want to base it on a thorough study of the profession that involves the input of a larger sample of practitioners. It really is the best way to ensure that we're measuring current competencies required for initial licensure. So as I previously mentioned when we're talking about the orthodontic assistant occupational analysis, Section 139 requires that boards conduct an OA every 5 years. And as we looked at the OA history for the RDA-EF profession, we saw that it is actually due this year. So the timing of the occupational analysis for this program coincides with making changes to the clinical competencies on the written exam and eliminating the practical and clinical components. Next slide. So because of these considerations, OPS has made 2 recommendations to the board to consider. First, we recommend that we work with the board to undertake an OA as part of the transition so that we have a definitive basis for content changes in the written exam. We'll also be working with the board to develop new content based on the updated occupational analysis and to address the additional competencies that should be added to the written exam. By doing this, we confirm the results of the workshop and it increases the defensibility of the changes. In addition, it will fulfill the Section 139 requirements and keep the examination program current. So we have already begun the occupational analysis process. The survey will be distributed in June, and we anticipate having it completed in August with examination development completed shortly thereafter. And we will work with the board on an implementation date that coincides with legislative changes. Next slide. So our second recommendation is a little bit more fluid at this point. Because there appears to be additional content that should be included on the written exam, we are recommending an increase in the number of items with an increase in the amount of time candidates are allotted to take the exam. However, we do need to get just a little bit further with the OA before we make a final recommendation on exactly how much of an increase should be made. And we do anticipate having that information finalized within the next couple of months here. So that is the information on our updates and recommendations for the RDA-EF programs. We are committed to working with the board to ensure the validity of this examination program, and we'll look forward to providing you with that concrete information in the very near future. Are there any questions?
This is Chair Casares. Are there any council member comments? Please use the raise hand feature. Are there any public comments? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type, "I would like to make a comment," using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference, and we'll give you a moment. All right, this is a moderator. I see no requests for public comment at this time. Madam Chair, would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you, moderator.
And I do see someone who has just submitted a request for public comments. So my apologies. We have a Melody Randolph that would like to make a comment. So Melody, you will have 2 minutes. I'll give you a 30-second warning. And Melody, you have been unmuted.
Hi there, Melody Randolph. Just questioning if OPS is aware of the philosophy and the wave of practical exams throughout the United States. I know that's kind of the wave in California, but just wondering where we stand in comparison to other states. Thank you.
Hi, this is Amelia Zulawaga from the Dental Board. Just jumping in, Melody, if you wanted to rephrase your question to a comment.
Sure, thank you for that. Yeah, it would be interesting. My comment would be, it would be interesting to find out, I would like to find out how, the comparison of practical exams on other boards across the United States. So my comment would be, in the future, it would be interesting information for OPS to include that in their presentation. Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator, and we have a second request for comment from a Molly Newton. Molly, you have been unmuted, Molly.
Good morning, and thank you for holding this meeting. I'm with the University of Pacific program. The question I have is, what will happen to the individuals who are in the queue to take the exam but have not been able to because of the COVID restrictions during the past year? Many of them have actually passed the current written exam but have not been able to be licensed because they haven't been able to take the practical or the lab portion. Thank you.
Hi, Molly, Ms. Newland. Again, this is Amelia Zuluaga. If you want to restructure your question into a comment, because this is the public comment period.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay. As a comment, I am concerned. I'm Dr. Newland. I'm the course director at Pacific. I am concerned about the students who have been waiting to take the exam because we get a lot of feedback from them that they haven't been able, of course, to practice their skills or to be licensed. And their concern is what's going to happen with them and their ability to become licensed because they have passed the program in the last year. Did I put that correctly?
Sorry,
right.
thank you, Dr. Newland. We received your comment.
All right, this is the moderator, and there are no further requests for public comment. Madam Chair, would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes.
Okay, it's closed.
Thank you, moderator. This is Chair Casares, Dr. Linter, and Ms. Okasich. Now we will move on to agenda item 6, update on dental assisting programs and courses. I am going to ask Ms. Zulaga to present this agenda item.
Thank you, Chair Cazares. The update on dental assisting programs and courses begins on page 115 of the meeting materials. Table 1 shows the total program and course applications approved within fiscal years 2018 to 2019, 2019 to 2020, and 2020 to 2021. Table 2 on this same page shows the total RDA and RDAEF site visits conducted within fiscal years 2018 to 2019, 2019 to 2020, and 2020 to 2021. Moving on to page 116 of the meeting materials, Table 3 shows the program and course application status within fiscal years 2018 to 2019, 2019 to 2020, and 2020 to 2021. Table 4 on this same page shows the total approved program and courses as of March 31st, 2021. Lastly, Table 5, which begins on this same page, shows the total approved programs and courses approved in 2020 and the first quarter of 2021. And there is no action necessary on this agenda item.
Hello, this is Chair Casares. Are there any council members that would like to comment? Please use the raise hand feature. Are there any public comments? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment on this agenda item, please type "I would like to make a comment" using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions. All right, this is a moderator. I see no requests for public comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
Thank you, moderator. Now we will move on to agenda item 7, update on dental assisting examination statistics. I'm going to ask Ms. Zulaga to continue with this agenda item.
Thank you. Currently, the board offers 4 written examinations: the RDA Combined General Written Exam, the RDAEF Written, the Orthodontic Assistant Permit Written, and the Dental Sedation Assistant Permit Written Exam. The tables beginning on page 1 of the memo and page 119 of the meeting materials includes candidates that have been tested within each of the fiscal years 2018 to 2019, 2019 to 2020, and 2020 to 2021, and the passing and failing scores for each exam. Additionally, you will find a breakdown of each exam by first-time and repeat candidates and their passing and failing scores within each of those fiscal years. You will also find numerous pages of statistics beginning on page 121 of the meeting materials that show the passing rates for individual approved programs from April 2020 through March 2021. And there is no action necessary on this agenda item.
Thank you, Ms. Zulaga. Are there any comments from the council members? Please use the raise hand feature. Are there any public comments? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on this item, please type. I would like to make a comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions. This is the moderator, and I see no requests for public comment at this time. Madam Chair, would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
Thank you.
Chair Cazares, this is Amelia Zuluaga. I'm sorry. Is now a good time to take our 15-minute break?
That would be perfect.
Moderators, we will be taking a 15-minute break, and we will return at 10:25.
This is Chair Casares. Welcome back, everyone. Now we will move on to agenda item 8, update on dental assisting licensing statistics. Ms. Zuluaga, would you please continue with this agenda item?
Thank you, Chair Cazares. Before I begin with this agenda item, I'm going to ask board staff to call roll to ensure everyone has returned from break.
This is Sarah Wallace, Assistant Executive Officer. It looks like board staff may be still on break. I will go ahead and call roll. Councilmember Cazares?
Present.
Councilmember Fowler?
Present.
Councilmember Jawad?
Present.
Councilmember Miyazaki?
Present.
Councilmember Olagi?
Olagi, present.
Councilmember Pacheco?
Pacheco, present.
Councilmember Reed Espinoza?
Present.
Thank you. All members are present.
Thank you. I will go ahead and continue with agenda item 8, the update on dental assisting licensing statistics. The board currently licenses RDAs, RDAEFs, OAs, and DSAs in the dental assisting program. This memo beginning on page 134 of the meeting materials includes tables that indicate the number of applications received by the board, as well as those that have been approved, the number of licenses that have been issued, along with the number of applications canceled, withdrawn, and denied. Also included is an overview of the current and inactive, delinquent, and canceled licenses. Lastly, this memo provides the delinquent license aging a breakdown of licensees per county, and the ratio of RDAs to DDSs licensed within those counties. For all of these tables, data is shown for fiscal years 2018, 2019, 2019, 2020, and 2020 to 2021, and there is no action necessary on this agenda item.
Thank you, Ms. Zulaga. Are there any council member comments? Please use the raise hand feature. Kara, I believe you had your hand raised first. Do you have a comment?
I'm sorry, but I know that this is not, this may not be the right time to be asking this, but I'm wondering if at the end, before the future agenda items, will we have will the council members be able to make a comment on like future agenda items before it goes to the stakeholders?
Hi, this is Amelia Zulawaga. I'm sorry, could you ask your question again?
So I'm looking at the agenda and I don't see in the future agenda items, it just says that the stakeholders are going to propose items for possible consideration for a future meeting. Will the council members be asked that question before the stakeholders, or we're going to be ending the meeting with the last item on number 9 and we can't make comments on anything else? Is that?
Yes, so the council members can propose future agenda items during agenda item number 10.
Okay, great, thank you.
This is Chair Casares. Are there any other comments from our council? Are there any public comments? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The question and answer panel has been opened. If any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 8, please type "I would like to make a comment" using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference. This is the moderator. I see no requests for public comment at this time. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
Thank you, moderator. We will now move on to agenda item 9, discussion and possible action on potential amendments to Business and Professional Code Section 1750, infection control course requirements for unlicensed dental assistant. I am going to ask Ms. Zulaga to present this agenda item.
Thank you, Chair Casares. This memo, beginning on page 141 of the meeting materials, provides the background regarding the potential amendments to infection control course requirements for unlicensed dental assistants. During the last Dental Assisting Council meeting in February, the Council discussed the concerns raised regarding the standards currently found in Business and Professions Code Section 1750. Currently, Business and Professions Code Section 1750, Subdivision C, specifies the employer of a dental assistant is responsible for ensuring that the dental assistant who has been in continuous employment for 120 days or more has already successfully completed or successfully completes a 2-hour course in Dental Practice Act, an 8-hour course in infection control, and a course in basic life support. The Council directed board staff to provide current board-approved infection control courses by geographic location, which are included beginning on page 147 of the meeting materials. This list includes 40 courses in Northern, 13 in Central, and 81 in Southern California. In addition, board staff were directed to draft proposed language for the council to discuss further. A legislative amendment would be necessary in order to change Business and Profession Code Section 1750. Based on the council's discussion at the last meeting, board staff have drafted 4 options provided in the meeting materials on pages 142 to 145. The council is asked to consider the legislative proposals to amend Business and Professions Code Section 1750. If the council determines a legislative amendment to Business and Professions Code Section 1750 is appropriate, the council is asked to consider a motion to recommend the specific legislative proposal to the board for its consideration. Thank you.
This is Sarah Wallace. Amelia, are you going to outline the options that are in the memo?
Sure, I can do that. So the 4 options, as I said, beginning on page 142, option 1, you can see the change is underlined and highlighted to include the employer of a dental assistant shall be responsible for ensuring that the dental assistant has successfully completed a board-approved 8-hour course in infection control prior to performing any basic supportive dental procedures involving potential exposure to blood, saliva, or other potentially infectious materials. And it removes number 2 under that section that states that a board-approved 8-hour course in infection control must be completed within a date of the year of employment. Option 2 includes an addition of letter C, which states the employer of a dental assistant shall be responsible for ensuring that the dental assistant has completed a board-approved 8-hour infection control course within 30 days of employment. Option 3, letter C specifies that the employer of a dental assistant shall be responsible for ensuring that the dental assistant has completed board-approved 8-hour course in infection control within 90 days of employment. And option 4 adds letter C, the employer of a dental assistant shall be responsible for ensuring that the dental assistant has completed a board-approved 8-hour course in infection control within 6 months of employment.
Thank you, Ms. Zalaga, for updating those options for us. Are there any council member discussions regarding this agenda? Please use the raise hand feature, please. Kara, go ahead.
I would just like to say that I think that I just want to thank the staff for coming up with those recommendations. And I think that option 1 is an excellent choice and it follows the OSHA guidelines as well closely. Thank you.
Jerry Feller, go ahead.
I also agree. Option 1 is the best option to remain compliant, and I move to accept option 1.
I second. Michelle Jawad.
Thank you. Please turn off the raise hand feature. The motion is passed. Are there any public comments? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any members of the public would like to comment, please type "I would like to make a comment" using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference. And we have a Claudia Pohl who would like to make a comment. Claudia, just a reminder, you'll have 2 minutes. I'll give you a 30-second warning. And Claudia, you have been unmuted.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Claudia Poland, speaking on behalf of CDAA. And to echo Kara's comment, thank you, staff, for the options. And I spoke at the previous, but I would like to say again that we strongly support option 1 as well, because this is in alignment with Cal OSHA. It's also in alignment with the Dental Board's own regulations found in CCR Title 16-1005 Infection Control. It states that all DHCP shall comply with infection control precautions and enforce the following minimum precautions to protect patients and DHCP to minimize the transmission. And they reference the Cal OSHA standard. So 1750 is not in alignment with this, and it creates unnecessary risk and exposure. And while the dentist is responsible, the reality is that in-office training is not always adequate. In a sampling of about 100 on-the-job trained dental assistants, there are 40% have less than 6 hours of training in the office, and 15% of them were not taught about hand washing, PPE, waterline maintenance, or handling hazardous waste and impressions. And yet they'll be performing these tasks and many others, as well as direct patient care. Additionally, many of the educators have seen breaches in infection control while visiting offices. Yet we are leaving the training of the OJTs in the hands of these offices until they have had their required hour course. Additionally, based on feedback from an OSHA compliance expert, about half of the DAs in the offices in her purview have not received their 8-hour course, and the office has received inspection errors. So this is not additional licensure, but an opportunity to modify a requirement that poses a risk to patients and employees. And I believe it is our ethical obligation. Thank you very much.
All right, our next request for public comment is from Melody Randolph. Melody, I'll let you know when you have been unmuted. All right, Melody, you've been unmuted.
Hello, Melody Randolph, representing the California Dental Assisting Teachers Association and DAGGR's Dental Assisting Educators Group. And I am thrilled, we are thrilled with this proposal, that this has been something needed for a very long time. It's unfortunate it's taken COVID to bring this to light and bring it forward and make this change, but absolutely 100% in agreement and support of what both Kara and Claudia have said. And on a personal note, as owner of RDA for You and an approved 8-hour infection control course, I am in offices, probably 3 or 4 different offices a week, doing these infection control classes, and the breaches that I see are incredible, and the knowledge that these students have before we come in is not sufficient, and I am thrilled that we're going to try to hit this ahead of time. And I also want to emphasize the fact that I know there's going to be an argument brought to light that this is going to be a hardship for offices, or that assistants won't be able to accomplish getting this requirement done before working exposure to blood or OPIM. And I would refute that by saying, again, look at the number of approved programs that we have are definitely sufficient. The options for taking these classes quickly are available regularly. So that is not a problem. Thank you very much.
All right, this is the moderator, and that is the end of our request for public comment. Madam Chair, would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
Thank you, moderator. Board staff, please call roll and record votes for this agenda item.
This is the moderator, and Pahua, I see your audio is connected by phone. You might be muted on your phone. So when you unmute on the computer, you also need to make sure you are unmuted on your phone as well.
This is Pahua. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Okay, so the motion is to accept the legislative proposal listed in option 1 to amend Business and Professions Code section 1750. Cesares?
Aye.
Cesares, aye. Fowler?
Fowler, aye.
Fowler, aye. Jawad?
Aye.
Jawad, aye. Miyazaki?
Aye.
Miyazaki, aye. Olagi?
Olagi, abstain.
Olagi, abstain. Pacheco?
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, aye. Reed Espinoza?
Aye.
Reed Espinoza, aye. Madam Chair, the motion passed.
This is Chair
Casares.
Casares.
I'm sorry, this is Sarah Wallace. I just wanted to comment on next steps for this proposal. So board staff will prepare this agenda item to bring to the board for consideration at a future meeting. This will require a legislative fix, and so if the board does agree with this proposal and to move it forward, it would most likely qualify. We have a couple of options. We do submit omnibus bills that are technical, non-controversial cleanup bills every year. I don't know that this would rise to the level of being technical or non-controversial, but we also have the option of having the discussions at the board meeting and including this issue in our sunset review report, which we will be putting together next year to submit to the legislature. And that is an opportunity for us to present all of our new issues to the Business and Professions committees in the Senate and Assembly, and then ask for statutory cleanup during that process as well. So it can take some time because it is a statutory cleanup, but I just wanted to comment on what the process would look like moving forward.
Thank you. Are there any public comments? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will open up the Q&A. All right, the Q&A is now available. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type, "I would like to make a comment," using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference. All right, we have a request for comment from Melody Randolph. I'll let you know when you've been unmuted. All right, Melody, you've been unmuted.
Just quickly, I would like to make a comment that I understand that the statutory language change often takes a long time, and this should be moved forward in whatever manner, method is available to us to move it forward as quickly as possible. Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator, and we have no further requests for public comment. Madam Chair, would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
Thank you. Now we will move on to agenda item 10, future agenda items. Are there any council member comments for future agenda items? Please use the raise hand feature. Kara, go ahead.
I just wanted to, I think I need more information to help me understand the public comment section of these meetings. And it does say in the box, type your question here. And I thought before that we were able to let the stakeholders ask questions. And it becomes a problem for me when the PowerPoints that aren't in the meeting materials that were given beforehand, and then the PowerPoints are given at that meeting. I might not see something that someone as a stakeholder might see that should be addressed. And it seems sort of like we're working in a bubble where we're not able to have the stakeholders ask questions about things that maybe they see that we might not see as being on the council, being a small council. So if the PowerPoints are not available, so I'm wondering if we can make a motion to see if the PowerPoints are not available before the meetings, then we should be able to have the stakeholders ask questions instead of just making like a comment that is sort of like a question because it has to be a comment. Does that make any sense?
Hi, this is Sarah Wallace, and I may defer to our board legal counsel, Tara Welsh, but the public comment period is just that. It's a public comment period. It's an opportunity for stakeholders to make a comment. We don't typically at the board or the council level engage in a discussion with the stakeholders, and so that's the reason why we preface the meeting with the introduction that we have. I do understand your point about the PowerPoint slides, and we will do what we can to make sure that that is included in our meeting materials moving forward. We do make every effort to try to run these meetings in the most transparent way. And then additionally, we as staff try to reach out to stakeholders that have made public comments, that have questions that can be addressed at the staff level, and make note of potential future agenda items. And so we've made notes of the comments today, and we'll be sure to reach out to those public commenters regarding their questions.
Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Jawad, did you want to make a comment?
Yes, Michelle Jawad. I wanted to go back to Dr. Newland's concern regarding the RDAs who've taken the written exam and are kind of hanging out there waiting for some kind of response or directive. Since I'm fairly new to this council, is there a way that we can ask that question from the entity that controls that or would have some information and put it on the agenda to bring back to us?
Hi, Councilmember Jawad. This is Sarah Wallace. In reference to Dr. Newland's comment, and I actually have already emailed her this morning, essentially what OPES reported was that the RDAEF written examination is still in development. And just for clarification, at this point, we don't have a firm implementation plan yet. It will be dependent on the findings of the occupational analysis and what the examination development plan looks like. But as soon as we have additional information, we will be reaching out to those applicants and to the program directors to communicate what the next steps will be. And we already at a staff level plan to have this information available at future board meetings as additional information becomes available. So at this point, it's a little early to be able to comment on what exactly the next steps are, but we will be sure to communicate immediately once we know what the final decision is.
Thank you, Sarah.
Tracy Reed, I believe you had your hand up next. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I would like to propose for a future agenda item to be a consideration of the EF2 program doing an investigation with adding anesthetic as one of their auxiliaries to move forward with. And then secondly, at what point in this meeting can we ask questions in regards to the EF program and the RDA program testing and moving forward post-COVID?
Member Reed, Espinoza, I'm sorry, this is Sarah Wallace. I think this would be the appropriate time to ask for a future agenda item. We have to be careful about discussions, not having discussion for items that are not on the agenda. So I guess it would be dependent upon what your question is, and we would be happy to connect with you offline after this meeting to get into the specifics and understand how to approach the subject at the council meetings moving forward.
Thank you.
This is Chair Casares. Jerry Fowler, did you have a question or comment?
I think I've just got my question answered, but it was a question related, it was unrelated to future agenda items. And so I guess I could address that offline with maybe Sarah or somebody else on the board.
Councilmember Fowler will be sure to reach out to you after this meeting.
Thank you so much.
This is Chair Casares. Thank you. This concludes the April 30th, 2021 Dental Assisting Council meeting. This meeting is adjourned.